Waiting for the pullback and patience are going to be two key entities we want to watch out for coming into this fresh new month, week, and we just finished off the first trading day of December, and we had a nice green trade inside of Leverage University. Wall Street is back from their desk from the holidays, right? They're back at it, and we're seeing some volatility. We got data coming in this week, so I think the next 2 weeks are going to be very opportunistic for day trading, but also for those long-term investors that are looking for their leap options. What's the big plays for 2026? All right. So December is going to set us up going into the new year, and we need to see how it's playing off. And it's just the first day, but I'm going to give you my read on the market today. All right. Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is Dr. B. If you've never been here before, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the family. If you're a returning watcher, supporter, and you're also in Leverage University, right? Welcome. You already know how we do here. All right. So let's get down to business. It's going to be a short video, quick updates, give you some levels because it's only the first day. All right. And also I have a very small trade review from you for you. A lot of you liked that last time of like, how does it actually look when you're live trading? How do you sound? Like, what are you really calling them out? Right. Things of that nature. So I have it set right at where I entered this Amazon put trade. I'll give a slight review of it so you can see my rationale. Okay. How I think while I'm in live trading. All right, because of course it's easy to chart things out when things aren't moving and talk about it after hours or what's going to happen, right? But what happens when you're in the live trading room and the candles are moving? Okay, so let's jump into the charts here, and I want to first jump into SPY. All right, so I've got this drawn out on SPY, and one thing I want you to pay attention to is this gap down that we had this morning. Okay, see that gap right there? Don't worry about PDL and PML; those are previous day low and pre-market low. Okay. So I marked those for my day trading session, but this gap right here, okay, if you can't see it, that was a gap this morning. Okay. So if you watch my gap fill video, you already kind of maybe put this into play if you've never, actually paid attention to it. And what happened? It found a support, right? And then we started filling the gap. However, right, two things happen when you gap down and you fill that gap. One, it gives the chance for anyone who was swinging calls or that didn't get to exit their position. They're like, oh, thank you. And they get out, right? Right back up at resistance. Another thing is that sellers or profit takers know they have a little bit of leverage and control based off of this gap down, right? Just as if you had like a gap up, right? This strong, it gaps up, it pulls back a little bit and then continues. It kind of gives you a sentiment pre-market just slightly. So what happened is that gap filled and this red candle came back in and we started to form a lower high. So what I'm looking for and what this told me today is that simply just consolidation, right? Some might look at this and say, well, that's a bull flag. There's a big move up and there's a bull flag. However, we still haven't had that really deep pullback, in my opinion, yet to where this move was warranted, a straight up move into consolidation, right? So Wall Street is back on at the desk. Right? You're getting a sentiment that maybe they want to take some profits, right? That candle kind of told me that, okay, there's still some sellers protecting underneath this 685 level, right? So what you want to look for tomorrow is one thing here is this level, all right? Just like I gave you that 661, 663 level from last couple of weeks, this is your level in zone right here, which is 673 to 675. Okay, 673 to 675. If you want to draw that on your charts, and it would look something like this. All right, we break underneath previous day low. Okay, at this time, it would be underneath 680 tomorrow. Break underneath that, and we start pulling back towards that zone. Okay, and it would look something like that. Now, the key is, what do we do when we get there? Very similar to the tariff drop. We were supposed to stop right here. Not the tariff drop, but this post NVIDIA earnings drop. We were technically supposed to stop right here at 668 and bounce, right? But the market likes to do what it wants to do. Okay, so we've got to see how it reacts here first. That is a previous high, turn support. Okay, so it would react ideally by showing some wicks or some holds up against that 674, 675. And then we would start rotating ideally back up. Okay. That's what you would want to see. And that's why I wanted to, allude to you here in the video, waiting for the pullback, because we were so bullish last week that what people do is they carry over that thesis and immediately jump into calls. If that is you, hopefully this video helps you out. Okay. The market does not go up in a straight line move like this. Okay. So, Brian, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't stop there and it just keeps going? Right. Then that's a little bit more of a concern. We've got 670 as a psych level, right, that could hold up. Right. And we would go back to these supports down here at 670 to 668, and it could have a deeper pullback. Okay. However, I do think bulls are going to try to step up right there and try to hold that level, because that's the level that everyone has been waiting on, or will be waiting on this week, ideally. Okay. On the ES futures, that is sitting right at 67. Roughly 67.70, 67.80. All right, 67.70, 67.80. We do have that 6,800 that's a psych level, which is why it's holding up right there. So we'll see what happens here, but I do want to watch the futures just to see if it's accelerating or not. But on the SPY, ideally 675, 673. In that zone, it could dip underneath it slightly and then rotate back, but that is the zone that you would ideally want to see this week. On the Qs, the pullback zone, ideally that you would want to see, and we kind of got it a little bit today, which was at 612, right? That was the Qs technically pullback zone. It actually pulled back to that tariff high. Okay. So maybe Qs try to pull back one more time, or maybe 610 we shall see, right? But there is a little bit of a gap up here to 620. So I'm just wondering if Qs want to trend up one more time to try to get that 620, fill that gap, and then start rolling back over. We shall see. Okay. But this price action today, it was a new month. Wall Street's coming back from their holidays, travel and whatnot. So are many people in general. So that's why the price action today just kind of stayed right where it was. As you can see, the market was, down 0.34% and then 0.46%. So it was a flat day, even though there was channel trading back and forth. All right. So this day didn't give us much. It just kind of gave us an idea that that level, more specifically on SPY, can kind of hold up as resistance for right now. We did not break into a new high. All right. Now, let's go into some stocks here. All right. Google, you're frustrating me, man. Right? Google is looking beautiful for this gap fill pullback. Right now, we can trust, as you can see, Google just slowly, the price action was not the best in my opinion today, because when it just slowly trickles down like that, it's okay. But I did like that it popped back up into this 319 right here and then rolled over again. So that curling right there tells me that that level can be trusted. So if we do get a little bit of a pop on Google into there and one more time, then that could start accelerating Google back down into that gap ideally. All right. We do have some support sitting right around here at 315. So, but I do like that Google closed into a new low down 1.65%. So Google is relatively weak, at least for the short term, pulling back. Okay. So Google's been one of the stronger stocks, obviously, but now it is into that straight up move right there. And then, as we say on the channel, if you've never heard it before, a straight up move, right, with low volume, consolidates, traps buyers, late buyers up here. Now it's back underneath there. And typically you'll see a mimicking of that move back to the downside. So it'll look like this. Okay. And that does not mean bearish. It just means it needs to pull back, right? People decide to take profits up here. It'll pull back to 310, and then ultimately this gap fill and pull back to 305 or 300. Okay. So watch out for Google for that gap fill back down. That looks pretty nice there on Google. So any pops, rejects, maybe just keep your stop loss underneath 320 would be ideal. Okay. Now, if you're looking for a dip buy on Google, I would rather see this gap fill. Again, that title being patient, waiting for the pullback, right? Because some people might look at this and say, Brian, that's a bull flag. Well, it's got to prove it until it does, right? Because these pops and rejects are pretty aggressive. It tried to go higher here, rejected all the way back down into this downtrend channel, right? So I need to see Google with a big uptrend push like this to really classify that as more of a reclaim bull flag, and then we're retesting the high. Okay. So that's just reading price action. All right. I was talking to my group today about that. Like, how do you know these things are going to happen? It's like, I don't. It's just experience of being able to read price action, meaning how the candles are moving. Are they forming? Are they really strong push candles with lower highs, higher lows? Or are they weak pops, fades, pops, fades, pops, fades, right? So it's trying to get more liquidity, meaning buyers back down here versus Wall Street does not want to buy up here, right? So Google, pay close attention to it this week. I talked about that. Amazon, this is the trade we took, so I'll give a review on that in just a second. Netflix, very strong today, right? Netflix is picking up. I thought Netflix would give a little bit more of a dip, but it kind of reclaimed this 106 level. So that's very interesting there, and it's done it for 2 weeks in a row. So Netflix, right, still like it was relatively weak, and now it's holding that level. So I would say, if you want to trade Netflix back to the upside, it was a little bit more, it was up almost 1.5% today. So there is a gap up here. So Netflix, maybe as long as it holds this 108, 107 level, you can look for Netflix to trend back to 110, gets back above 110. I think that's a daily 20 right there. Yeah, above 110. We can maybe see Netflix getting back up into the 120s plus. All right. So let's keep an eye on Netflix being relatively strong right now comparative to the market. All right. What's Meta doing? All right. Pulling back just slightly, kind of flat today, but kind of curling right here from this bounce that it had. So ideally, Meta coming back and retesting those lows again, very similar to how Bitcoin did. Just nice little bounce off of there and then rotate it back down, fill some of these gaps would be ideal. But Meta does have a nice cycle level at 650 that it's holding underneath. So 650, maybe watch that for now, and then watch 620 back down. And then if it comes all the way back down to the lows, that'd be even better, right? Back down to 600. All right. NVIDIA, nothing really doing here. I mean, NVIDIA had a decently strong day, up almost 2% here. As you can see, it had a big gap down right there. As you can see, that was where it opened up at 173 and then finished, touching 180. Right. So that was kind of interesting to see that NVIDIA grabbed some buyers down here pretty quickly. And want to watch this on NVIDIA. That is it time for NVIDIA to start curling back up above 184. All right. That's something to watch for. Is this kind of a bottom? All right. A little bit of a temporary bottom, but it's got to get back above that 184, 185 level. So let's keep an eye on NVIDIA. As I was watching price action today, that, below this 184 is still weak technically, but the way the buyers stepped up right there was pretty strong. All right. AMD as well, right? Held up his strength here, but AMD is pushing right back into a pretty major level, which is sitting right at this daily 50, right? Came pretty strong into there, which is right at 220. And the daily 20 is sitting up here at 230. So, based on the price action, maybe giving it a little bit more room that it could push back up into, 225. I kind of want to watch that, which would be right here. Those previous lows, what does it do at 225? Right. So maybe just watching it, but still, I think it was a great pickup right here. It was great. But what does it do? Because this was a big seller candle right there off of that failure of 230. All right. 225. All right. So now it's pushing back up into where we fell. Does it blast through it, or do we rotate right back down? All right. Palantir, relatively weak today, just kind of flat. All right. As you can see, flat, but really nothing doing as the market was pushing up. So yeah, nothing really there. CoreWeave had a decent bounce today. Very interesting bounce there on CoreWeave off of daily. It's kind of like acting like NVIDIA a little bit, just got immediately bought up. So that is interesting to watch there on this nice kind of higher low with volume up there, curling there on the RSI, MACD kind of crossing a little bit right there. As you can see on that daily, the MACD crossing on a daily, right? The next target would be roughly around this daily 20 at 86. So if you're interested in CoreWeave, not bad there. Not bad. All right. I was trying to look for a bottom of where it is. If you bought up shares on CoreWeave, if you're a believer in it, if you've done your due diligence and research, that's awesome. right? It is a good risk to reward in my opinion, but I have seen where this has popped and then faded back down. So still got to pay attention to that 86 level right there. But if it blasts through that 86, you can see this Fibonacci retracement tool I have here. It will trend back up to that $100 mark. All right. So keep your eye on Core. We've got some buyers sitting there. We got MU back above the daily 20 at 232, trying to trend back up to the highs. We'll see if it double tops or takes out a new high. Nothing there. QCOM looking pretty good here, in my opinion, kind of curling up off this 165 level. We'll keep an eye on that. Breaks above 170. We start getting QCOM back up into the 180s. All right. I'll round out with some crypto here and go into that Amazon trade. So based off of crypto pulling back, all right, if we look here, Bitcoin, all right, pulling back there. We kind of talked about that on that last video, that Bitcoin is maybe not done, right? That's a nice, pretty clean bear flag right there. I know we have this little hammer candle here for people, also in structure wise, that it did bounce off this lows. They're not going to allow this to break right away. But what you do see is some lower high structure that stepped in. Today, what you would like to see is it continues above 90, right? And kind of trail back to that 100, but it immediately pulled back in the after hours. So at this point, I'm staying with my thesis on Bitcoin, pulling back to the mid 70s and then even to potentially 60 by zone 2 down here. Okay. Still underneath that weekly 50 moving average that we talked about. Okay. Go back and watch that Bitcoin video a couple videos ago, talking about crypto winter. All right. And because of that, what pulled back? Robinhood. Okay. Robinhood pulled back in the after hours. All right. Kind of stuck in between two gaps. I've got the daily 20 sitting right here at 126. All right. And then we've got some moving averages sitting right here. So what I would like out of Robinhood personally is I would like for it to double bottom and fill this gap. I've got 96 on Robinhood pulling back to. And it would look something like this. Maybe it trends up a little bit higher, stays underneath 130, and then we pull back like that. That would be more ideal for filling those little gaps back down, retesting 100, giving us another shot at that. That would be wonderful. Okay. But the first level is, if it associates with SPY, is this kind of 118 level. Okay, 115 to 118, that zone right there, filling that gap right there would be awesome. And see if we get some buyers. Look at those buyers that stepped right there, pushed it back higher. Okay, I think we got some back over here. Yeah, right in here. All right, pushed it higher. So that 118, 120 level, it's close enough, but I would love for it to fill that gap if possible. Okay, kind of roll over here and come back into there and then see if we can take it back up. All right. Cool. All right, let's go into the Amazon review of the trade that I took on Amazon and why. Okay. So Mondays, and especially starting off a new month, I'm very patient. So I typically wait for about the first 30 minutes. We had ISM data today at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 30 minutes into the market, right? And once I get a feel for the first 15, 20 heading into that data, I'm starting to watch price action at a specific level. That means I'm watching a level, watching how the candlesticks are moving at that level. And if I feel like it's a good risk to reward, I will enter that trade with a particular stop loss. I want to enter as close as possible to the level that I like. Okay. So what I was noticing on SPY, if we go into how the day looked. Okay. So SPY was pushing up, right into data. Okay. Pushing up right into data, right off open, just an opening drive to the upside. Okay. I don't chase opening drives to the upside or opening pushes to the downside leading into data. It's typically a trap. Okay. Now, did it continue back higher? Of course. But this is SPY. All right. So as I saw that pushing back up into this 181, 182 level, which is still a little bit of resistance, right? So that's why the pre-market sessions, your pre-market prep matters, because you need probably a couple of levels to trust, right? So I was looking at this kind of 682 level right into there going into data, Okay, look at the timestamp right there, 7 a.m. I'm on the West Coast, so that is when data released. Okay, so at that same time, right, even though Amazon is strong, it's not that and people are like, you played puts on Amazon? Why? It's one of the strongest ones. It's because I am day trading and scalping. So that means I can trade either direction within the intraday. So a long-term investor or someone that's having a bigger view picture might not see this trade, right? Because they're not looking on the 5 and 15 minute, right? So as that was happening, I saw Amazon pushing up again into a very key level. What level is that, Dr. B? A weekly level and the daily 20. What do I talk about? Those daily moving averages typically have a lot of reaction off of them. Okay. So here was Amazon pushing up into this weekly and daily resistance level. 1, 2, right? The bigger the time frame, if it's a weekly or a daily, right? You can trust that level a little bit more, okay? Because it's happened 1, 2, and now it's trying a third time, okay? Now this level will eventually break, but it might need some more juice to break it, okay? That simply means it's not going to break typically on just this low volume squeeze right up into it, right? Kind of like what this did. Low volume squeeze right up into it, pulls back, rotates, gets liquidity, and breaks through, okay? So I was watching this daily 20, which is that light blue area right there, plus a weekly resistance. So I already knew that based on my analysis that I did pre-market, okay? So I was like, man, if Amazon pushes up into 235, right, we might could get a nice little rejection off of there, okay? So I'm on a 15 minute, and look where it pushed right up into my zone, okay? So we entered puts on Amazon right around here, okay, with a stop loss above 236, okay? Really, I kind of was willing to give it to 237 just in case it went up a little bit further and then pulled back. But generally in this zone, I wanted to see the reaction. I started to see that wick right there, okay? So I started to enter puts right around here, okay? And you'll see in the live trading session, I call it out. I enter 230 puts weeklies, okay? My target on this was ideally pre-market low, okay? And it started to roll over right here. Got a break of VWAP. I'm sorry, so many lines on here. Break of VWAP right there, okay? And then it finally got a nice little push, right? Now, I also told the group, I said, hey, if you want to wait for a clearance back underneath previous day high, you're more than welcome, or this nice little wick right there. And the pre-market high was technically, if you look at it right there, right? So look where it accelerated right through pre-market high, right? So you could enter on that break, or this candle right here, open up, enter on that break of VWAP and pre-market high. And you'll see in the live trading session with me guiding it. All right. So let's end off here with the live trading session and see how I did. All right. Let me turn it up. And I will fast forward it because we were in this trade waiting on it to play out for roughly about 15, 20 minutes. All right. On Amazon, 230 puts on Amazon, just sitting underneath that daily 20. Literally just got a couple right now, a little bit before data, but I do like that rejection off of there. So I'm going to try that. And then I'm going to also look at NVIDIA underneath 170, 180. So I'm going to check on that and see. All right. So I want you to pay attention to, I have my 6 charts up: SPY, QQQ, IWM. I've got NVIDIA, AMD, and Amazon. Or typically I put my top 3 watches on the bottom of my 6 charts. Okay. So if you can see here, just like the video, if you've watched how I do my pre-market prep, I marked my previous day previous day low on SPY, okay, PDL, and I also have my pre-market low marked. So I started seeing it wick off of that PDL prior to the data, okay? So that's why you see me entering those Amazon puts. And when I say starters, that is kind of an entry position, right? So just say someone has, I'll make it contractual. So just say someone puts normally 10 contracts in, and each contract is worth $100. So that's $1,000 position, right? A starter is starting off with kind of nibbling at the trade. So putting 3 contracts in, right? And then the more you like it, okay, put another 3 in, right? And then the more that it's working in your favor, okay, maybe add my final 4, right? So when I say starters in my community, that simply means that I'm starting to get a little bit of position. What beginners do a lot of times, and some traders put their full position. Like, I'm not saying people don't, but what I've seen before is that when I call something or when I'm in a trade, someone immediately put everything into it, right? I could be wrong, right? And I do not want to have a heavy position size, right, before the trade is confirmed, because I like to be a little bit early to my trades. All right. So I apologize for that. Let's continue. So there's Amazon bottom right, and then I'll fast forward it to where the trade starts working out. So Amazon a little bit early, but I'm going to be watching this white line, which is pre-market high. So the daily 20 is sitting up here at 236. So I'm in some 230 puts, Amazon weeklies, average cost 185. Light size. SPY sitting at previous day low. All right, I'll pause it right there really quick and I'll speed it up to where the trade starts working out. So a question I got in my Leverage University community today when we were in live trading is that, Brian, how did you know that that was going to happen? And, is this trusting your levels and doing your pre-market prep? Because once you get into the actual trading session, right? Yes, Amazon was strong off the open, right? But it was strong right into a key weekly resistance. Like we zoomed out, right? So someone might be saying like Amazon's really strong, but if your entry was off, if you didn't get in right off the open, then you got rejected back down off of 236, right? Now, again, what is the trade, which is why I don't really like breakouts, like breakout trades. So this white line here, as you heard me say, is pre-market high. Okay. So what happened here is that it broke above pre-market high. I'm on a 5-minute time frame. And then where's the retest? Retest of pre-market high, which was technically right here. So someone could have said a break, retest, and take it back up, which was still a nice trade, as you'll see in just a second. However, what I saw is that it was kind of closing underneath pre-market highs. So I saw that that was a pretty decent rejection off of there. And it was also the daily 20. Okay. So let's keep going. Amazon 230 puts, weeklies. All right, so seeing some top wicks here on the previous day low. I'm also looking at NVIDIA, maybe 172.5 or 175 puts on NVIDIA. All right. So again, you can see Amazon starting to work out. Now, what I want you to watch as I fast forwarded here to when the trade was actually working in our favor. You see that data had come out at that time. Okay. And you see Amazon spark back up. Okay. However, still trusted the trade. I wanted a little bit more confirmation on Amazon to add a little bit more to it, maybe. Okay. So you just heard me say there, I want more confirmation to add to the position because the starter is working in my favor. At this point, I'm sitting right around break even, positive, break even, positive, but I do not want Amazon to break out into my 236, 237 stop loss area, right? And I'm adding because I'm too cocky and too confident. So you'll see in just a second, I added, right, when it got closer to that now dotted line, that pre-market failure. Okay. Another top wick there. See the price action is a big green candle, then it wicks back down. All right. So it was a beautiful break and retest of pre-market high for anyone who took calls on that. That's the beauty about trading. You make money both ways. So you see that whole candle. Nice candle here on Amazon. Needs to flip. NVIDIA. Okay. So let's skip ahead. So still waiting. I still like it. Kind of zooming out just a little bit, scanning some other things. And it should be breaking here pretty soon. Previous day low, while Amazon is pulling back. So I like that. So what I was saying there is I like that SPY was pushing up, QQQ was pushing up, and Amazon was getting exhausted a little bit. So you see these big green candles on SPY and QQQ, even NVIDIA down here giving a nice push, right? You could trade with it, but that's how I knew that Amazon was likely to work out in my favor because it was not pushing up continuously as the market was pushing up. So building more confidence that the trade is going to work out in my favor. Just gonna break that pre-market high. So if you look at the timestamp here, we entered right around 19 to 20 minutes. So we're about 17 minutes into the trade. Still roughly break even. Video. Let's see. At this time, it's still holding up that pre-market high, but it still has not yielded into my stop loss. So this is where I was like, right? But I knew it was going to be pushing right up into the daily 20. Amazon has some news today. So I was checking why it was, pushing up, why it was strong. Was there any positive news? And they did have a little bit of a positive news catalyst. So, but I was still comfortable because I was in a light size position. Okay. Had some type of launches, 12 labs, Maringo 3. All right. As you can see here, still looking at. All right, SPY kind of rolling over a little bit. Didn't fill the gap entirely up there, but got close. Okay. So you can see here, Amazon still rejecting, right? So still no continuation, even with those big candles. I need to see how they finish, how they close, and they were still rejecting. So right back to where I wanted it to be. NVIDIA's RSI on a. All right, so it should be breaking here pretty soon. Bottom right hand of my screen right here. I'm watching for that yellow dotted line to break. That is previous day high and also pre-market high. It breaks that yellow line and it should start accelerating a little bit faster. So that's all I'm looking for. All right, there's the first break. There we go. There's the second break. So that's looking a lot better. I'm on a 5-minute. I'm looking where the target is at this point. So when you're in a trade, you need to know where you're trying to take the trade. So you just don't say, oh, it's green, and then you just step away from your computer or step away from your phone, right? There needs to be a plan of exit as well. So here's what I'm doing at that time. I'm planning my exit of the trade as it's breaking, and I'm up about 10 to 12% at this point. And I'm marked, as you can see, market open. That MO is market open. So that's my first target. Is buyers on a strong stock are trying to hold up where the market opened on Amazon, which was around 233 and some change. As always, anytime you're green, I always like to tell anybody in live trading, anytime you're green, doesn't matter how much money it is, you're welcome to take it at any time. I just want to trust and try to see, my minimum trim is typically 15%. So sitting around 5-6% right now up. If you're up, you got a better entry than me, then you're maybe up a little bit more. If you're not even in this trade, that's okay. All right, so let's scan it. And you'll see it working out a little bit. There we go. Approaching 10%. At that time, also, if you notice, look how closely matched it is to SPY, right? And Qs as well. So I'm seeing SPY pull back as Amazon is also pulling back, which is going to accelerate any downside trade at the time of this recording, right? So The video was still holding up very strong, even though, I felt like SPY and Qs were a little bit in their more resistance areas. So I wanted to personally trade on off the top of the resistance. You could have taken calls today too, but I just felt we needed that pullback. So I was willing to trust the rejection area for puts versus anything that was pushing up, right?
Percent. 5 minutes starting to cross right here on a 5. So it should start accelerating a little bit more. Let's see if we can get down to these high volume nodes of 232 and then 230. So we're at 12% now.
Okay. So you just heard me say there, as we're green, how do you manage the trade going up in value? So we're up about 12%. Can I hold the trade a little bit longer based on price action? So we're checking a couple of things. I checked the 5-minute and the 15-minute MACD and RSI to see if they were curling down. And that's what I was just mentioning.
Awesome trade, everybody, to start the month off. Nice and chill. Well, welcome to take your profits. We're sitting at market open if you like, or trim if you like here, or move your stop losses to break even. Still holding for me personally.
Okay. So you hear there that I'm protecting everybody, including myself, that if someone's willing to take this 12 to 15%, then they can go ahead and trim here, or they can protect their trade by moving the stop loss into profit, right? So if you're up 15% and the average cost was, as you heard earlier, $185, let's move that stop loss to roughly around $200. So no matter what, you're going to have a winning trade.
See if we can get that break of market open as that MACD's converging. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome. 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 Let's go. Let's go. Nice green trade, everybody. Nice green. Here, I'll just take my medicine, but I like the failure of SPY back underneath previous day low here. So I think we can get one more big push out of it.
Okay. So at this point, I'm seeing a wick. You see that wick at market open?
They don't want to give up that market open on Amazon. Still holding for me.
So I'm only holding at this time simply
to take a little bit off on a trim.
So I trimmed at market open, still holding a runner, meaning a little extra contracts to just see if I can get a little bit more of a break. I like how SPY is aggressively pulling back, but I'm seeing a wick on Amazon, right? It was once a solid red candle, and then there's now a wick there. So there's buyers sitting at market open trying to hold it up.
At 16%. But I truly think Amazon can pull all the way.
Yeah.
Watching the YouTube videos too. That's cool too.
Okay.
And a little bit more.
Here we go.
Right. For me.
So look at that candle now on Amazon. See how it's breaking market open, right? So it's going down. If you heard me earlier say, hey, my target is roughly 232. And then ultimately, if it can get down to the 230s, that's awesome. But at this point, we were up almost 30, mid 30%.
Personally, because imagine if you weren't in Amazon, right? Can we get one more little push down?
Okay. So it's pushing into this high volume node here. See the volume profile there, previous high.
Sitting at 17%. So that's 22%.
I think we got a little bit more out of this too.
Of getting out right now. Maybe keep a stop if it gets back above that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right, but that closed underneath.
Beautiful.
Right, and then if I go on a 5-minute 9 EMA, right, it's underneath it. So
okay.
Now it's back underneath market open, so it should accelerate a little bit more here. And then we got really nothing until here. I mean, we can just move your stops to break even on runners if you're still holding with me.
All right. So there is a live trade review. All right, let me pull back here. Live trade review. Y'all seemingly enjoyed those inside of our wins channel. You can see here I posted the win. Let's see if it loads for me. And there we go. Right. So awesome trade to start the month, 30 to 40%. Rejection of daily 20 MA, failure back under pre-market high, previous day high. There's our 40+%, right, on those 230 puts. So I wanted to show you that simply to see like how the videos translate into actually the levels and the candles moving. Okay. So watch out for this week, because that's what I'm watching. That's how I get my thesis, is I pay attention throughout the day of how the candles are moving at specific levels. As you can see, SPY rejecting there a little bit. And then we talked about everything else, pops, fades, and waiting for that bigger pullback thesis. This was a slow grind up. And look, in 2 15-minute candles, within 30 minutes, it gave the whole move grind back down. Right. So that tells me that sellers are still present. Okay. So thank y'all so much for staying in. If you like that review at the end, let me know. If you want to join Leverage University and get some of those live trading ideas, signals, you can hear how I sound in there. Hopefully it's calming, soothing, all those good things. Keep cool, calm, and collected. Trust your trade plan. The link is down below. If you want to stay on the videos and just continue to watch the YouTube channel for free, that is awesome. Thank y'all so much for the support. Peace, love, and blessings to you. See you in the next one. Bye.